Welcome to How to Share, a podcast about collaboration in our families, friendships, at work, and in the world. I'm Wynne, and in this episode, Vicki Atkinson and I are with activist and author Sam Daley-Harris. Sam has just released the third edition of his book, Reclaiming Democracy: Every Citizen's Guide to Transformational Advocacy. Sam is such an inspiration for his willingness to get involved and show us how. In this episode, he tells us his story of self, a connection of the dots that started him on the work to fight against hunger and poverty. We talk about the hopelessness that comes with the problems of the world. And Sam tells us how to face that so we can find our advocational power. Fighting our own cynicism is necessary to get involved. And Sam arms us with a great perspective that to be cynical is to be obedient. Are we really okay to leave things as they stand today? We talk about transformational advocacy versus transactional advocacy. With transactions, we sign the petition, the letter, or whatever it is, and are done. By participating in transformational advocacy, we work with organizations that support us and work to make a significant impact both in our country and in how we see ourselves. Sam talks about how government in America has changed since he started advocating 45 years ago. It's a great boost to remind us to get involved, and he gives us some starting points to figure out how to make a real difference. Through it all, Sam delivers hope, the reality that we can make a difference, that some things are getting better, and how we can claim our power to make sure the issues we care about are heard. This is a great episode that will get you fired up for the right reasons. We know you'll love it. Hi, Sam.
Hi there.
Vicki and I are so excited to talk with you.
It's a thrill to be here.
Yeah, you have a way of helping us feel like we can make a difference about seemingly intractable problems. So I'm just smiling already because I love that charge of power that comes with you.
Very true. And Wynne and I were talking, this is a time when we look to all of the speakers, the spokespersons, the thought leaders, trying to continue to fire up our sense of hope. And boy, did you do that for us. We so enjoyed your book, and it's just full of rich examples, and then your spokespersonship and your history in this space about being a powerful advocate. We're just thrilled that you're spending time with us.
Yeah.
It's an honor. I'm thrilled too.
Wow.
Well, and as a little bit of an introduction to you and my leading question, you've worked for more than 40 years as an advocate for some big causes like ending hunger and alleviating poverty. And you write, if we want to move from passively caring about something to actually acting on it, and if we want to move others to action, we must be honest about the hopelessness that's in all of us. Without facing it, it's impossible to move past it into effective action. Can you tell us the story about how you faced that hopelessness?
Yes, I'm excited to do that. I want to let you know that I'm going to use a method called the story of self. And it was developed by the Harvard professor Marshall Gans. And it basically asks what happened in your life and what decisions did you make that got you to this commitment. And my story of self includes the hopelessness piece. But when I tell it, I always urge listeners and viewers to think about their story. What happened in your life? And what decisions did you make that got you to your own commitment? Listening to this podcast, for one thing. So, yeah, so here it is. It's kind of unique, but I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in music, and I played percussion instruments in the Miami Philharmonic Orchestra for 12 years and taught high school music. And 45 years ago, I founded the anti-poverty lobby Results. And I'm
Yeah.
asked, music, poverty lobby, what's the connection? And when I
Mm-hmm.
look back in my life, there's certain experiences that start pointing me in a different direction. The death of a friend around high school graduation, 1964, and the assassination of U.S. Senator Robert Kennedy around college graduation in 1968 got me to asking the questions of purpose. Why am I here? What am I here to do? What's my purpose? 9 years later, and this is where the hopelessness even becomes conscious, I'm invited to a presentation on ending world hunger put on by the Hunger Project. And I go to this event thinking, well, hunger's inevitable. What do I know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a musician, but I mean, I'm thinking there must be no solutions. Again, what do I know? Because if there were solutions, I'm thinking somebody would have done something by now. But I go to this event and it's obvious right away there's no mystery to growing food, clean water, basic health, literacy. I'm not hopeless about the perceived lack of solutions. I'm hopeless about human nature.
Mm-hmm.
People would just never
Mm-hmm.
get around to doing the things that can be done. But there's one human nature I have some control over, my
Mm-hmm.
own, and my
Yeah.
questions, why am I here? What am I here to do? So I get involved in a big way. This is the end of the story. In 1978, 1979, I spoke to 7,000 high school students, classroom by classroom, on
Oh,
ending world hunger. And
wow.
before I went into the first classroom, I read some statements from Jimmy Carter's Commission on World Hunger calling for the political will
Mm-hmm.
to end hunger. So I asked 7,000 high school students, what's the name of your member of Congress? I don't want to know if you
Oh,
wrote him. I don't want to know if you met him. Just
yeah.
the name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Out of 7,000 asked, 200, fewer than 3% could answer correctly. 6,800, over 97%, could not tell me the name of
Yeah.
their member of Congress. And results grew out of this gap between the calls for the political will to end hunger on the one hand and the lack of basic information on who represented us in Washington on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And embedded in that story is like, I'm invited to this presentation on ending world hunger. Why?
Yeah.
Who would go to that? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so, I think we'll talk about this a little later, but
Yeah.
Transformational advocacy, part of transformational advocacy is permission to have longer, deeper
Mm-hmm.
conversations with
Oh,
people.
yeah.
And that longer, deeper conversation that night in
Yeah.
a hotel room on Miami Beach,
Oh.
was an opportunity to look at my incorrect perception of hopelessness.
Well,
Hmm.
and the two
Wow.
things that you tie together there are so interesting because you tie together that quest for purpose, which you talk about a great deal in your book, and the invitation. So there's a seed of something, and not
Mm-hmm.
only were you invited, but you went to that event. Was it because it spoke to that question about purpose?
It's funny, this gets everybody back to the 70s,
Yeah.
but I was in a yoga class and
Mm.
my no, yoga teacher said, no class next whatever,
Mhm.
because there'll be a presentation on ending world hunger. And my thought was, one, he never cancels yoga class. And number two, ending world hunger is impossible.
Right.
I should check this out kind
Hmm.
of thing. So it
Yeah.
registered as at that moment as consciously hopeless or impossible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
I'm
love
after
what you
not
said.
thinking.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I love your story of self because it reminds me when I've worked with students and part of my career, the idea of a life graph and looking at those pivotal moments that really are transformational for the individual.
Yeah.
What I've found in my work with college students is that often those moments that really resonate are those moments when they begin to see that they have power unclaimed,
Mhm.
when it's a moment where someone or something has instilled this idea that I am more than just one person. I can be part of a collective.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that happened to you, that you saw work to be done and you saw purpose, and look where it's taken you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Marshall Gans, who developed it, also calls it knowing your why and sharing it.
I
And,
love that.
Yeah.
maybe people don't know their why, or maybe they know it, but they never share it. No,
Right.
knowing it and sharing it is like a
Right.
very key piece of the
Right.
puzzle, I think.
Right.
Agree. Yeah.
So, songwriter Billy Bragg once quipped that the opposite of faith isn't doubt, it's cynicism. And one of the things that you say is that we need to move past our cynicism.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you again. We just don't have time for things we don't think will make a difference.
Mhm.
And, I've heard our sort of, this is
Yeah.
current, our culture of the 24-hour news cycle. And it's described as a type of engagement that's more akin to watching sports and being a fan of the team instead of
Mhm.
really being engaged in politics. Is
Mhm.
that one of the things that's sort of
Yeah,
stymieing our involvement?
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tell you this story. I tell it all the time because it's moved me so much. I was interviewed on a national radio program, hundreds of stations. I was moved by how vulnerable the interviewer was. This was
Hmm.
on 1A, is the name of the show on NPR. And the question was, this is question number two. He said, the passive nature to our politics now, you can feel beat down by it. I mean, this is my career and I feel beat down by it. This is national radio. This is my career and I feel beat down by it. I don't
Right?
participate the same way others do because I'm a political journalist, but I do have to pay attention. It's a
Mhm.
grind. It's a
Mhm.
grind, Sam. I mean, I know
Mm.
you know that. What am I feeling? What is the way out
Mm.
of that? I was like, boy, this guy is being really
Wow.
vulnerable
Yeah.
with his
Wow.
audience and with
Sam,
me.
he said this on air, like
Oh
live while
yeah.
you,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
getting to the heart of what he was
Yeah.
thinking. Look what you
Right?
did.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so what I said was Apollo astronaut Rusty Schweickart said, "We aren't passengers on spaceship Earth. We're the crew." Well, are
Yeah.
we? And if we
Yeah.
are, how does crew operate? And the second thing I said was a futurist and climate activist. I think he's in the Seattle area. Never
Hmm.
met him, but I quote him all the time. Alex Steffen
Mhm.
said, in fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. That's what
Following the
he said.
herd, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if
Uh-huh.
I'm cynical, I'm obedient to the way
Yeah.
things are. I'm
Right?
not going
Hmm.
to do anything.
Right?
Why would I if nothing I do makes a difference? And if I could add one more, I didn't
Yeah.
know this before when I was on that interview program, but since then I've met and had a chance to interact with a guy from Stanford, Jamil Zaki, who wrote a book called Hope for Cynics: The Surprising Science of Human Goodness.
Hmm.
Ooh.
So anyway,
Ooh.
he said, if you're cynical, it's like you're playing poker and you fold your hand before the game even starts.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I say,
right.
well, if you're a civic cynic, you fold your hand before the Congress is even sworn
Hmm.
in, before the
Yeah.
first bill is introduced. So
Yeah.
yeah, cynicism is out there. I think we can see
Right.
a
Oh,
role for ourselves
Right.
if we look
And
past it.
and
yeah.
ask the question, do we want to be obedient to how things are?
Yay,
Yeah.
yes.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have
Um,
a question for both of you. Something you both said made me wonder about this difference, Sam, that you talk about, you and Wynne talking about transformational advocacy
mhm,
versus transactional.
mhm,
And that idea about, news channels and sports, that you mentioned, when it seems like people, even if their hearts are in the right place, they get swept up in the moment by moment and lose kind of the arc of the big picture, the history behind things. And do you both think that that then dissuades people from engagement because there are so many things to react to that might force you to fold your hands and sit down? Those little transactional things, do they really get in the way?
Well, let me just give a little definition first and then go to your
Okay.
question. I describe transactional advocacy as like sign the petition,
Yeah.
transaction complete. And with
Mm-hmm.
transformational advocacy, you're trained, encouraged, and succeed at doing things as an advocate you never thought you could do, like meet with a member of Congress and bring them on
Mm-hmm.
board to your issue. And when
Yeah.
you do that, you see yourself differently. You see yourself in a new light. That's the
Mhm.
transformation. I couldn't to I can, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. He wouldn't, she wouldn't listen to me. She did, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so now, why do people stay on the sidelines? Well, I'm going to tell you another very quick story because the institutions, there are many answers. The institutions we were part of treat us as children
Mhm.
and provide us only with
Mm-hmm.
the transactional.
Right.
I was talking with the head of organizing
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
a very big group. Everyone listening and watching this would know the name of this group, which I'm not
Mm.
going to say. The head of organizing, this is maybe 7 years ago, said to me, we can't let our volunteers write letters to the editor or op-eds because they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the
Right.
organization. It's like
Yeah.
protecting their brand
Mhm.
was more
Yeah.
important than empowering their members. One of
Yeah.
the groups I coached for 7 years called Citizens Climate Lobby, and the year before COVID, their volunteers had 3,400 letters to the editor, op-eds, and editorials published in that year,
Wow.
2019. One group saying they'll get it wrong and misrepresent the organization. Citizens Climate Lobby is saying, what do we have to do to help them get it right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
give
Right.
that to them. And
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
result, they had thousands
Mm-hmm.
of letters, op-eds
Yeah.
published. So, we're not offered very much
Mhm.
in the way
Yeah.
of an invitation into a powerful methodology, a
Yeah.
powerful,
Yeah.
what I call structure of support.
Yeah. And it's such a because you have so many good techniques for helping people get it right and we
Right.
want to
Yes.
dig into that. But the other thing, and Vicki, your question brought this up is,
Mm-hmm.
my kids are young and my 6-year-old was playing in a little league game the other night and he tried to make a play and it didn't work the other night and he was bereft. I mean, he was
Yeah.
so upset about it. And we talked about how, and so this starts young, speaking to Sam's comment about treating us like children, it starts young where
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
trying, sometimes it feels like, oh, it's going to be safer not to try. I'm going to sit on the sidelines and not try to
Yeah.
make that play because trying and failing
Right.
hurts. And we
Yeah.
learn that young. It hurts.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
without trying, we
yeah,
can't ever
yeah.
win.
Yeah.
We can never make the play. And so we had that conversation, through a lot of tears.
So that's why for me the structure of support is
Hmm.
so important. So
Yeah.
you have a team around you. You're not
Yeah.
doing it alone, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that, I'm sure.
And do you
Yeah.
both think that some of that is because, when I was growing up and girls were just starting to play Little League, I could do that and I only needed to worry about the people that were there if I messed up.
Mhm.
Now, I think kids are acculturated very early and then they become adults, that things that we do can end up on TikTok and social media, the risks I think are greater to try. No one wants to be wrong because it'll live in infamy forever, potentially,
Yeah,
if you're trying to advocate for a good cause.
yeah,
Does that make it
Perhaps
harder?
I think the impact on the heart is happens either way.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. The question for me always comes down to who do you want to be in the world?
Hmm.
Do you want
Mm-hmm.
to be someone who's on the sidelines and not
Hmm.
giving it a try because maybe I'm going to fail? You
Yeah.
gave the Little League example.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like if you're an exceptional hitter in
Hmm.
baseball, you're batting 300
Hmm.
and you're failing out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times
Right.
to
Right.
get the 3 hits. And I was saying to my wife recently, because we just came back from where my son works in baseball in Arizona, it's like tough for fans too, because
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
watch, they're watching batters fail 7 out of 10 times who are amazing
Right.
batting 300.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my God.
like,
Such a great reminder,
It is
right?
such a
well,
good
Yeah.
reminder.
thought of our careers, whatever we do, we're a lawyer, a stockbroker, a teacher, or whatever, and
Hmm.
Yeah.
we failed 7 out of every times in our jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty
Yeah.
Woo!
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet we lift it up and say bat in
Yeah.
300.
Yeah,
We need to
Woo!
yeah,
think
Yeah.
about what does that
Yeah.
really mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Wow.
Right. So, Sam, you quoted David Brooks' column It's a 2023 New York Times column. He says, if you want healthy politics, encourage people to have confidence in their ability to make a difference.
Mhm.
Don't undermine that confidence. And Brooks has written some really powerful pieces recently about reclaiming our democracy. How do you encourage people to make a difference?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it part of that team thing? And how do you convince it that it's good for them as well?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah. So let me give you two things.
Yeah.
One is my if I'm talking to someone and they say, "Yeah, but how do I get started? What do I look for?" It's like church shopping almost or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, you're looking for three things oversimplified. Does this group work to deliver transformational advocacies?" And these are three indicators. One, recruitment and community building. Does the group
Mm.
bring new people in and form them into local chapters?
Mm.
So they're not working alone, not bowling alone kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That's the recruitment part. And community building, one piece for me is, do they have a monthly whole of organization webinar with guest
Mm-hmm.
speakers, Q&A, inspiration?
Mhm.
So recruitment and community building, that's really what I urge people to look for and groups to do. Two, training. How do you get the meeting with the elected? How do you plan for the meeting? What do you
Yeah.
ask for in the meeting? How do you write a letter to the editor? True. Training.
Yeah.
Three,
Mhm.
breakthroughs. The organization encourages its members to have breakthroughs. There's a drawing in the book. There's a small circle labeled your comfort zone. And
Oh,
to the right is
yes.
a much larger circle
Mhm.
labeled where the magic happens.
Yes.
And you're not looking
Yeah.
for a group that'll kick you out of your comfort zone, but
Yeah.
encourage you out
Mhm.
of your
Yeah.
comfort zone. So recruitment and community building, training, and encouraging breakthroughs. And those are the ingredients done well that can help people make the difference that they wanted to make. Because on your own,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but
You
so
need
what
that.
you did 40, 45 years ago with results is you must not have found that when we were talking, you were talking about.
You ever heard
Yeah.
of trial and error? Yeah, I mean that was
Yeah.
Yeah.
see, it started in Los Angeles, and oversimplified was how can we make a difference in Washington D.C.
Hmm.
from Los Angeles? I mean, it didn't
Hmm.
stay in Los Angeles, and so we were constantly. I'm going to tell you the first member of Congress we ever met. It's not Long Beach. It was in Seal Beach, California. And the congressman went on to be lieutenant governor of California. And we had this John Denver film, 49 minutes long. Here's the
Mm.
congressman in a
Mm.
living room with maybe
Mm.
15, 20 people. We show this film. It was called I Want to Live. That was the name of this film. And the first question, someone raises their hand and said, "Do you get many letters on hunger?" The congressman looked at the ceiling, looked down. He said, "There's this Methodist minister in Long Beach. Do you get many letters on hunger?" There's this Methodist minister in Long Beach, And so
Mhm.
it was, yeah, it was all trial and error for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
did the best we could.
But did
Yeah.
you start that because you didn't find a transformational advocate
Yeah.
group that spoke to the issues that you cared about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a longer story, but the shortest version is I was involved in a Los Angeles World Hunger event. This would have
Hmm.
been I think it would have been May of 1980, and I
Hmm.
met a couple at the event who said we're inspired, but we're frustrated. We don't know what to do. I had just moved to LA 6 months earlier. I said, well, when I was in Miami, I was in a group that met every week, but once a month, we'd end the meeting early and break out the Bread for the World newsletters and write letters to Congress. Oh, let's do that at our house. And, she was on a TV series called It's a Living, Making a Living on ABC back in the early 80s. And a friend was on the same show, couldn't come that night, said, let's do it at my house in Santa Monica. And before I knew, I was driving to 6 locations every month, leading 6 letter writing sessions. It
Yeah.
was not, and it's
Right.
a long,
Yeah.
the story goes on. But anyway,
Yeah.
but that was the start, and it was trial and error
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were frustrated, or this group was frustrated with the things that were in place. So you're like, well, we're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
have to just do
yeah.
it differently, right?
Yeah, let me tell you
Yeah.
one last thing.
Yeah.
In 1983, Eastern Airlines and Delta Airlines used to offer 21 flights
Mm.
for $649 if you did them in 21 days.
Mhm.
So I would take a 3-week leave from substitute teaching, which was what I
Mhm.
was doing to pay the bills,
Mhm.
and I would do a 21 city trip
Oh,
to start new chapters or
yeah.
revisit
Yeah.
old chapters kind of thing. I did 5 21 city trips
Oh my
over an 18
gosh.
month. It was
Five.
I went to about 55 cities twice. I didn't go to
Yeah.
whatever the math is.
Yeah.
I went to like 105 cities, but not
Yeah.
105 different ones. Only
Yeah.
about
Hmm.
55 different ones
Hmm.
twice.
Right.
But yeah.
But I think what you
Incredible.
said, that really the letter writing and people finding their people, I
Mhm.
think you need that community and you need to inspire one another. But the thing that really strikes me about the letter writing is that there is something about seeing the tangible, actually
Mhm.
actively doing something and
Mhm.
Right.
writing letters together. And I'm
Mhm.
imagining there was good
Yeah.
food and drink and
Mhm.
music and
Mhm.
Yeah.
bonding. And I think the worst thing of all is trying to make a difference and feeling that you're alone, that
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah. Yeah.
party of one. That's
Yeah.
the worst.
Mhm.
But I would also add, we encourage people to go beyond that, to not
Hmm.
just meet with the member of Congress and their staff,
Yeah.
but to build a relationship with a member
Mhm.
of Congress and their staff. And there are tons of stories in
Yeah.
my book, Reclaiming Our Democracy. Uh, I'll tell one brief one. Ellie Sparks, who
Mhm.
said when she joined Citizens Climate Lobby, she was suffering from climate trauma. She would
Hmm.
read Bill McKibben's book, Earth, and she would weep at home and she would weep at work. And then she joined CCL, and 18 months later, she's co-leading a session on
Mhm.
getting relationships with members of Congress and editorial writers. At the end of her little talk, and I'll end it here, she said, going into their offices was hard. I had to let go of a lot of emotional baggage. I could no longer judge them or hold hostility in my heart toward them. I had to let go of my fear of climate change and my fear that they wouldn't listen to me. I had to
Oh,
center myself in love.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Releasing fear and centering in love, this is sacred and profound work. Well, from
wow.
climate trauma to sacred and profound,
Yeah.
that is the Transformational Advocacy Journal.
Yeah.
And too often, I think people feel that they have to lead with animosity or facts and
Mm.
figures
Mhm.
and win
Ah,
other people
Right.
over. And
yeah,
really,
yeah,
when we come together and we're authentic and we're speaking our
yeah.
truth, and it just resonates, and that does so much, with
Mhm.
you, Sam. People are drawn in naturally because you can feel it.
If I
Yeah.
could add
Yeah.
this to the no, you don't have to lead with
Yeah.
animosity. When I'm coaching a group that's meeting with a member of Congress who opposes their bill, I have them
Mm.
ask 3 questions. One, we know you don't support this bill. What would it take to change your mind? Now, you're listening for assignments. What would it take
Mm.
to change your mind? Two, could you say more about that?
Mhm.
Three, why do you think that is? So
Oh
it's
my
really a deep
gosh.
listening
Mhm.
exercise.
Just open-ended questions, right?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I have this friend, he was talking to a member of Congress. It's a longer story, but the shorter version is the congressman's, what would it take to change your mind? Well, if you could get the chambers of commerce on board. And this was in South Florida. He did Miami, Miami Beach, Coral Gables, letters from the heads of the chambers of Congress. And says, well, if you get the mayors on board, like, what would
Mhm.
it take to change your mind? If
Yeah.
you could get the mayor, he did Miami, Miami Beach, letters from the mayors. And so, you're not just blindly asking what would it take. No,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you're listening for assignments
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
frankly building
Right.
relationship rather than the animosity route,
Yeah.
the relationship route.
And
Well,
I
and
love
you're
the use of the word assignments, right?
yeah.
I've got a
Yeah,
job to do.
Right,
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
And you're
Yeah.
really clear that going in that antagonistic fashion doesn't work. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to go in,
well, first of all,
finding
if I'm
something
antagonistic, I might not even want to go in.
right. Well,
That's
yeah.
true.
And
Sure.
even if I wanted to go in, I may not get an invitation
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a barrier. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
let me be clear. We need people demonstrating or
Mm-hmm.
protesting, absolutely, but
Mhm.
we need people going inside too. And
Yes.
so this is really the
Yeah.
journey inside.
Yeah.
Well, as you were building your group, one of the observations that you made was, as I continued to look for partners in this work, most of the people I talked to were more likely to ask me, why are you doing this? Rather than,
Yeah.
what can I do to help?
Yeah,
And and that's such a powerful observation about our state
yeah,
of affairs.
yeah.
Um, if we all got involved, what do you think our democracy would look like?
Well, a lot different than it does right now.
Ooh.
Right.
Listen, one of the big problems, all this money in politics, I don't know the number for this election, but 4 years ago, I would think it was like 14 or $16 billion. Well, that money in politics only works because so many people are asleep. I mean, there's
Yeah.
this like national slumber party in terms of all of this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
Donald Trump was elected the first time, 100 million Americans didn't vote. And when Joe Biden was elected in 2020, it was the largest voter turnout in 125 years, and 80 million didn't vote. The question was, what do you think our democracy would look like? If
Yeah.
weren't asking, why are you doing this? But we're
Yeah.
asking, what can I do?
Yeah.
Well, we'd get appropriate gun
Hmm.
safety legislation. We wouldn't be cutting hundreds of millions of dollars from Medicaid. We wouldn't
Right.
be cutting food assistance. We wouldn't be,
Yeah. And we
yeah,
might just
Yeah.
value our right to vote.
yeah, yeah. And that's the vote. But then
Yeah.
my whole gig is between elections.
Yes. Yes.
The elections are really, really important, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
so is the time between the
Yeah.
elections.
Okay, so
Um,
that you've kind of teed up my next question really
okay.
well for me, which is you got it started this in the 90s
Mhm.
and now we're
Yeah.
in 2025. Does the politics look different? I mean,
Yeah.
is it more intractable now? Is
Yeah.
it less malleable than it
Hmm.
was then? I
Hmm.
mean, is it still possible to make a difference?
Yeah. Well, so it's way different
Mm-hmm.
than 1980. I'll give you, well, a couple examples. One is um, today, a congressional district has about 761,000 constituents. If you're my US representative, I and 761,000 people are your constituents. In
Mm-hmm.
1980, that was 250,000 less.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the
Yeah.
population of the country
Yeah.
grows, but the numbers of seats in Congress has stayed the same, which some
Mm-hmm.
people say we should have been changing. I
Hmm.
mean, originally,
Mm-hmm.
every congressional district had about 33,000 constituents. I'm talking 1790.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's
Yeah.
761,000. So that's one example
Mm-hmm.
of how
Yeah.
things have changed. So you're kind of, even those involved, you've got more people to get through to get
Yeah.
to get through. The others, money and politics, my voice gets a little bit more like this as the money in politics gets, but
Mm-hmm.
that's no reason to give up. And in fact, that's more reason to get relational. Not that it's
Mm-hmm.
easy, but if I'm 100, one of 760,000 and I'm doing this, online petitions or
Yeah.
whatever, I,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sam, do you
Uh,
think it's that compared to, 40 years ago that I don't want this to be true, but I wonder, I'm 63. I wonder when I look across, my life cycle, if there has been this waning of altruism in terms of being involved and engaged in favor of, or in if that's at one point on the continuum where people really wanted to do the right things. I mean, I saw
yeah.
that when I was growing up, not that far away from
Mhm.
the civil rights movement and who my parents were, and, doing the right thing mattered.
Right.
Now, is it that people will only be drawn in if they're experiencing a personal pain point? Now, is it I'll find my voice if it's
Mhm.
directly affecting my family? I feel like there are a lot of people that are just backing away and staying on the sidelines.
Yes, but my book and this conversation is all
Yes.
to encourage people to come off the sidelines. Come on,
Right.
come on in, the water's fine kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
It's beyond fine, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this other quick story.
Yeah.
One of the people in the book is Maxine Thomas, and she's in Indiana, and she said to me, I have a heart for service, but I was clueless about
Mhm.
politics, about advocacy, especially political advocacy. It's a longer story, but eventually she finds results and she gets a scholarship to go to the results conference in Washington, D.C. And the next day after her training, she meets with all the congressional offices in Indiana, both senators that year. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, I was euphoric. I
Hmm.
was on this high and felt I was
Mm-hmm.
part of something revolutionary. So
Yeah.
I was clueless to I was euphoric. That
Yeah.
again is the transformational advocacy. Now, I'm not going to pretend that every moment working in an organization is
Yeah.
euphoria. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
but it gives you some opportunities. Every moment climbing Mount Everest isn't euphoric, but
Right.
And maybe it's just one moment away, right? That
yeah,
Yeah.
turning of the
exactly.
tide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Well, I love that you said, come on in, the water's fine, because one of
Yeah.
your commitments is you have 18 of them. You say, on this line, I will stand against any tide. And that's one of your commitments. And it's
Yeah.
yep.
such a powerful statement, as is be unreasonable. Do you
And
have
that's
a,
more unreasonable with your commitment,
yeah,
not giving it up, than
Yeah.
unreasonable with people. Go ahead.
right, right. So I don't know if this is like asking if you have a favorite child, which I won't ask, but do you have a favorite commitment?
I have a favorite commitment, actually.
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
actually on the organization's part creating and on the volunteers' part joining a
Uh-huh.
powerful structure of support. I mean, because
Yeah.
what we just talked about a moment ago, do you think that people are less likely to come off the sidelines? Do you think people are going to focus on things that directly impact their lives? The structure of support, the inviting people into it and having that
Mm-hmm.
structure of support is the kind of cocoon and more energizer too,
Yeah.
uh, to overcome that inertia, kind of tendency to, I don't know, give up and, you know,
Yeah. And
go on
your
the sideline.
reminder, I think, about, because there are lots of organizations, but the things that you shared with us a little bit ago about ensuring vibrancy, that it's an active community, I think is really important because there are lots of in name only, well-intending entities out
Mhm.
there.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that's such a great takeaway from your book and also just listening to you is that when you have that service heart and you want to get into the fray and you want to make a
Mhm.
difference, you can be choosy. You don't need to like leap into the first organization, but vet
Mhm.
them.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
sad thing is, there's not a ton to choose from too often. So I think it'll be in the program notes. There's a sign up sheet, and
Yeah.
or if you go to reclaimingourdemocracy.com, there's a I want to learn more. And if you click that, you can ask me to help you connect
So
with one of
great.
the groups that you could choose from that
Yeah.
has more committed to delivering
Yeah.
what we've
Mm-hmm.
been talking about.
And say more about that sign up sheet. Do people tell you
Yeah.
what their particular issue is, or I mean,
Yeah,
is that the first step, is to
yeah,
decide what?
it'll list groups like Results on Global and Domestic Poverty,
Yeah.
Citizens Climate Lobby
Mm,
on climate change, the
mm,
Quaker Lobby, FCNL Friends Committee on
mm,
National Legislation on uh, peace issues, really.
mm.
And it'll list some others. And one is a group I just started coaching in January of 2025. It's the United Church of Christ Climate Hope Affiliates.
Mm.
They started the first one in March. Now they have eight in July of 2025.
Mm.
And, it's just a delight. They had no letters to the editor. Now I think they've had 10
Mm.
published since March in just a matter of 4 months or something. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
exciting to see it
Blossom.
blossom from
Yes.
really
Yes.
nothing.
And
Yeah.
Sam, you would be willing to receive an inquiry really about any area of concern when you think about advocacy, domestic issues,
Yeah,
environment,
yeah. On that
people.
sign-up sheet, it gives about 6 options of groups, but my email address is easily available so people can write no matter what,
Yeah.
whether it's with that sign-up sheet. I'll add one other thing. Between January 2024 and July 2025, 18 months, I've done 111 in-person or Zoom talks. I mean, not even webinars, but like where it's a presentation to a
Mhm.
group kind of
Yeah.
thing. So there's also an invitation if your place of worship or you teach a
Mhm.
class or your book group or something else would be open to having me talk to them.
Yeah.
You can let me know and them know.
What an
Yeah.
invitation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the other things that of many great stories, and I love your book because it has so many stories. But you also
Yes.
quote so much great wisdom that captures the feeling of this moment. And one of these was a Washington Post column entitled "What We Can Do Something About Political Anger," and it was by Jennifer Rubin, and you quoted it. A media bias for doom and gloom helps explain why most people think everything is worse today when it
Yeah.
really isn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's so kind of coming full circle from
Yeah.
hopelessness to hopefulness. Say more
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. Well, I'm going to say one thing and then I'll directly
Yeah.
answer it. I begin chapter one with a quote from a Washington Post column, not her, but someone else. Samuelson was his last name. He'd been with a journalist for 15 years and he was retiring. And he said, by my crude estimation, over the last 51 years, I've written some 2 million words. Nothing I've ever written has changed anything. Something that's
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing what he
Mm-hmm.
said. I
Yeah.
said, good grief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a distinguished journalist. Nothing I've written has changed
Yeah.
Right.
anything. And then I
Yeah.
launch into, which I'll write now, and because it answers the question, when results started lobbying in 1984 on
Mm-hmm.
child survival
Mm-hmm.
globally,
Yeah.
the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, was reporting that 40,000 children around the world were dying every day from preventable things,
Yeah.
measles coupled with malnutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
results volunteers have lobbied every year from 1984 till now,
Wow.
1985,
Mm-hmm.
41 years. And the global child death rate has gone down from 40,000 a day to 13,125 a day. Now it's still too high, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's a 66%
Mm-hmm.
decline in
Mm-hmm.
global child deaths.
Right.
Most people, you go out on the street and say, how's the world doing?
Mm-hmm.
You get some variation of hell in a
Yeah.
handbasket.
Right.
Yeah.
People don't
True.
know that there's been a 66%
Mm-hmm.
decline in global child deaths. And I'm saying that citizens had something to do with it. I don't mean results only,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we were in there every year for 41 years.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I'm going to tell one other quick story. We were lobbying, and now, to be honest, I'll tell the better story in a moment, but it's likely to go back up for the first time in
Mm-hmm.
41 years, given what
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk and Marco Rubio and Donald Trump have
Mm-hmm.
done in
Yeah.
gutting the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing this quote of one of the things David Brooks said in an Ideas Festival in Aspen recently. He said something like the cuts and destruction of the U.S. Agency for
Mm-hmm.
International Development has brought me a kind of rage I've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the other story
Yeah.
is it was 2019 and President Trump was president and he called for a 29% cut to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, which had saved 38 million lives at that point in
Mm-hmm.
2019. And in my presentations, I always show this photo with Margaret Smith from Dallas, Texas, and she's holding her Senator Ted Cruz's hands with two hands. And she said, I learned in results that I hold Senator Cruz's hands
Oh.
with two hands, and I don't let go until I finish my laser talk on the Global
Mm-hmm.
Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and
Oh my
malaria.
goodness.
That was the first year Senator Cruz ever said yes to one of Results' requests. They did much more than the two hands thing.
Mhm.
But the point is, and the funding was increased. It was not a 29% cut. It was a 16% increase. And by today, 2025, the Global Fund and its partners have saved 65 million lives from AIDS, tuberculosis. Where do you read about 65 million lives saved?
Mm-hmm.
People
Yeah,
don't know that
Right.
actually there's some positive
right.
things that happen in the
Yeah,
world people might be aware of. I think
Right.
it's Nick
yeah,
Kristof
Yeah.
tends to have an annual column
Yeah.
about, things are much better than we
Yeah.
right,
realize.
right.
Well, I love that, that you bring it back to that positive, these are the results that you can have. And then the other part that you highlight in your book is the effect on each individual and how your transformational advocacy versus transactional advocacy,
Yeah,
participating, getting
Yeah,
outside that comfort zone, doing things that you didn't see think you
yeah,
was possible, seeing yourself in ways that you weren't possible.
yeah,
I mean, it's not only results oriented, but it's personally
yeah,
transformative.
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. It's
yeah.
I have to tell you, I've been at a couple of dinner party type events in recent weeks where people are getting a citizenship to another country.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
the angst and anxiety
Hmm.
that's out
yeah,
there in so many different ways in different communities, and um, the feeling that escaping might be the best shot or something. And I'm not begrudging anyone for whatever choice, but then I have another friend who founded a group called Search for Common Ground. And he led it for many, many years and retired maybe 10 years ago and retired to the Netherlands. And as soon as the president was elected, he and his wife moved back to
Hmm.
the US to be part of the
hmm.
fray
Hmm.
kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I think we can make a much bigger difference than we ever think, and we are needed much more than we ever were needed. And
Yeah.
just urge people.
But
Uh,
that's what makes, I think, your book and the latest edition so very timely for
Hmm.
people. Wynne and I have lots of conversations with people that are trying to figure out how to affiliate, what
mhm,
to hold on to in their
mhm,
communities, finding like-minded ones. And we worry about our children and the
Hmm.
future. And I think yesterday I had a conversation with someone who said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but now I know I have to do something because
yeah,
I don't want to be one of the ones that sat back when it mattered,
yeah,
to
yeah,
be involved. And
yeah,
this was from someone who, let's just say, least likely ever,
Hmm.
to want to step in. But I
yeah,
think your book does that, and we can't
yeah,
endorse it enough. If
yeah,
people need the encouragement or they need the practical advice about how to begin, and I think the fact that it is historical and the examples that you bring forward reminds us that we've been through bad things before, and that we are resilient, but we're so much more so when we're
yeah,
together.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and that, Vicki, coming from you, you've done so much to support higher ed communities, so much to support, you know, housing for the development of
yeah.
disabled and those solutions. I mean, you have so much skin in this game, so it's yeah,
Mm.
nice to
Sam, I
hear.
have a sister who's intellectually disabled and
Mhm.
physically disabled, and we're in Illinois, and we're beginning to see, what the day-to-day ramifications are for those
Hmm.
of greatest need. And
Yeah.
it will be not for my sister, but for people that I care about that may not have the same circle of care around her, a
Right.
reduction in support and service, this rolling back, and then all of the associated psychological issues that people have. So the
Yeah.
mental health community
Yeah.
as well. There will be less and less for people who need more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless we stand up and do something.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll
yeah,
see a surge in caring
Hmm.
yeah,
Right.
emerging.
Right. I like
at
that. A
this
surge
time.
in
Yeah.
caring.
Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds like a
Hey,
rallying cry. That's just what, yes, I love
yeah.
that.
And I
Oh
think
my goodness.
the impression that I walked away from your book was, some of the things that advocates do are uncomfortable. You know,
Yeah.
just, the whole trying and failing, writing, trying to get involved in, getting the meeting with the representatives. I mean, it's asking people to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But sitting by and watching the world, watching enact legislation or spend the money in ways that we don't want our money spent, I would say is
Hmm.
more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
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 If
Yeah.
I could share this quote,
Yeah.
it's the longer version of one thing I shared earlier. It's again by Alex Steffen. He said, optimism is a political act. Those who benefit from the status quo are perfectly happy with a large population of people who believe nothing will get any better. In fact, these days, cynicism is obedience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's really radical is being willing to look right at the magnitude and difficulty of the problems we face and still insist we can solve those problems. And I'd love to say it again, but because I always repeat quotes, but the point is,
Hmm.
if someone says to me, it's just so hard. I don't
Mhm.
think I think, and
Right.
I'm wondering about Nelson Mandela in year 20, 24th year in prison, and he's not quite in year 27. Think we've got it tough? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective, people.
let your courage
Perspective.
show.
Yeah. Let your
Yeah.
courage show that.
Ooh,
So good. Well, Sam,
wow.
thanks for coming on and showing us how to do that in an
Yeah.
effective way. It's such a pleasure to talk with you.
It's a thrill. I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Our music was written for us by the incredible duo of Jack Canfora and Rob Koenig. For show notes and more great inspiration, see avitiva.com, avitiva.com.